What's going on? It's your boy Masta be here live from the MMB Radio Studios for the MMB Radio Podcast, where no topic is too big or too small. We talk about them all. And on this episode of the podcast, I have a woman who is just lighting it up on social media. She's the newest signee to Red Bottom Productions. She comes in a little fun size, like spooky season, Halloween, the little fun sizes. So we're going to talk about all that and much more. I want to welcome in Miss Pixxie LaRue. Pixxie, how are you?
Hello, I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time out of your crazy schedule. I know you were constantly on socials and shooting content. And like I said, congratulations now working with Red Bottom Productions. So
yes, thank you.
We'll jump right into that. What's that like now to be working with a major production company?
So it's been a really amazing journey, to be honest, with Red Bottom Productions. I met the owner a little over a year ago, about a year and a half actually now, and we just immediately connected. We're both very business-minded. Before porn, I came from business and marketing in particular, so he and I just immediately clicked and had similar ideas. And I am definitely one of those people who puts the work in as well. And so, over the past year and a half, I have been regularly his top selling star, even though he's had huge mainstream stars. And so that being said, and just the way everything was going, the one day I was texting him and I was like joking around. I'm like, you should really just sign me already. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so magic happened, but it's really cool because I get to be part of a little bit more. So I get to be part of social media, not only through myself, but now also through Red Bottom Productions. So like I do our TikTok. And then I also get to work a lot more closely with the PR rep that we use, Don Juan, which is really cool. And we can come up with, awesome interviews for me to do and, different ways to market things. And it's just really cool being more a part of the process. And that being said, for my birthday in August, I was gifted a blow bang. And the best part of it was I was able to be a part of the project from the beginning to the end, helping make creative decisions, throughout everything. And that's, to me, that is amazing because I have a very creative mind. I like to be involved in the process. And so to be able to do that was just, phenomenal. So this relationship is definitely blooming and working out for me and for Red Bottom.
And coming from a marketing background and, doing the promotions and all that stuff like that, this is probably something that's like, you're a step ahead of a lot of other people because a lot of people probably get into this game and really, don't know more than just, the sex part of it, and even some of those people don't even clearly know, all the ins and outs of what it is they're doing, because there's so much people think it's like, it's so easy, it's like, oh, it's just, they're just screwing on camera, like, and for the most part, it's probably that, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, I made people really mad on TikTok because I recently had shoulder surgery. I had a torn labrum rotator cuff and bicep. And so I had surgery, and just like a month afterwards, I was cleared to have sex. I was not cleared to work on set for another 3 months because we do athletics. I do a lot of stuff that uses my full body and all my muscles. And so I posted on TikTok and I was like, I think it's very interesting that my doctor did this. And I made everybody really mad. And they're like, you're not actually an athlete or a worker. It takes nothing to take a load. And I was like, okay.
Sound like these dicks don't jerk themselves off. You know what I mean? Like there is motion in, in the elbow and the arm, the shoulder. And
yeah. I was like, can you go backwards and get throat fucked? No, I didn't think so.
Now, to kind of tell us that you had the surgery and everything, like, obviously your doctors, I mean, they know what you do, or do they not know what you do? Like, how do you, what's that conversation like when you're trying to get cleared for something like that? Like, hey, how often can how soon can I do a blow bang?
So in the very beginning, I knew that this is something that I had to be honest with my doctor about. And I'm very lucky to live in Philadelphia. And we have phenomenal doctors here. We're known for it. And so both my PCP and then my shoulder surgeon know what I do and are open-minded and don't care. The surgeon has been so supportive, but it's important because I am an athlete and I am using it. So like even the way we did this surgery was based on what I do on set. He's like, what are the motions that you do the most of? In fact, it was hysterical. We're about to go into surgery and he's there in all his scrubs and we're talking and he goes, so what kind of motion? And I'm like, I do a lot of like behind push-ups. And this surgeon literally starts doing the motion right there in my room before surgery. And I was like, yes, just right there. But yeah, no, amazingly supportive. And it's really been important to have been honest because, we would have potentially done the surgery totally different otherwise. So, very, very lucky in that respect. I don't tell all my doctors. There's definitely still a stigma, especially in healthcare. Honestly, just because we don't talk enough about sexual health in this country, and specifically in terms of how it affects people with vaginas. With so many of these different STIs and STDs and stuff affecting people with vaginas more so than people with penises and this and that. I feel like we just don't talk about this stuff. And so it becomes this stigma and it's like anyone in the industry is gross or, I hate this word, but people say dirty, and it's like so ridiculous because the exact opposite is the truth. I know way more about STIs and STDs than I've ever wanted to know. So like there's definitely still a stigma and you definitely have to feel people out. But I do, as much as possible in life in general, try to be honest about what I do. My family knows, my friends all know, and are all super supportive. And honestly, my best friends and my mom all watch my scenes, which is amazing.
And is that awkward to you when they like, do they critique you on it? Like, do they give you feedback or do you just know that they watch and you just don't talk about it?
So my mom generally just tells me like how proud she is of me and stuff. It's a creative project. So, she's looking at it in a very analytic sort of sense. It's my mom. My friends, it depends. My one bestie knows that I appreciate actual, like, legit feedback. And so she does. She's like, here, you should have maybe done this. And so, like, I love that. And then some friends just say, great job or that was awesome. But yeah, so it's kind of, across the board a little different, but everyone's been super chill. And then, sometimes, in fact, recently I had somebody reach out who I used to date years ago, and they told me they came across my porn, and, they're into it. And I was like, that is so honoring. I just thought that was awesome. That was like such a wonderful moment. I was like, oh, I really am a porn star.
Now, it's listening to you. Obviously, you can hear the passion in your voice and how dedicated you are to kind of breaking this stigma of kind of educating people, kind of normalizing it in a way. But let me
Mhm.
ask you, in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest thing that people get so hung up on when they think about porn? Like, why is it still in almost 2026 still considered this taboo thing that people for whatever can just not get over it?
I really don't know. I've never understood the anti-porn thing and anti-sex work in general because, statistically with research and science, we have learned that it helps society. It is so, it's therapeutic. It is, way to release it. There's just so many things about it that we have learned that it is a positive force in the world. And I've never understood why people are anti. And I don't even know if they're really anti-porn or if they just want control. I feel like a lot of people want control of others, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect
Um,
sense.
in a weird way. And that's where we get these ideas of like, you have to do what I think is right or good or okay, which is insane, as long as you're not hurting yourself or someone else, who cares, consenting adults. And that's another thing I love to talk about and break stigmas about is fetish and kinks and stuff. Because there is so much therapeutic work that, especially in terms of like PTSD and CPTSD, that happens with kink and fetish and BDSM. And like, that's amazing. Why would we not want that? Why would saying this is bad? It's really just a control thing. Maybe you don't like that thing, or that thing reminds you of something that you're upset about. A lot of people hold a lot of shame, unfortunately, and so you internalize that, and then you take it out on those around you. So there's a lot of weird reasons, but it's really detrimental to society, unfortunately. And it's so sad that we're going in this direction of even more anti-porn right now, and we're getting all these censorship laws right now, and, with IDs and stuff, and even menu videos is raising the age to 21 to view pornography. And that is just wild. You're telling me somebody can go die in the military but can't buy porn?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? And that hurts us all as an industry, too, I've been talking with other people in the industry, and, like, a lot of our sites have become more restricted and more censored. And so we've all noticed because of that sales dropping. People don't realize that all these different sites and apps and stuff, it's based from the country where, it is. So it has to go by that country's laws. And so if it's in a country where the laws are more and more strict, it's going to get more and more strict. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you need to have a VPN, and you need to set your VPN to a country where the online censorship laws are a little more lax, or they just don't have them, or, something like that, because then you're going to be able to actually see all the porn and, whatever you want, because of how things are going. When I was in marketing, I saw this with Google Analytics, and I kind of knew this was coming because already it had gotten to a point where when you're on the back end doing like your SEO and everything, so much stuff was being censored already, and I could just see that it was going more and more that way. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, VPN. And honestly, at this point, I think a residential proxy, honestly. Because, then you could just bounce around, and then they, can't really follow you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I mean, you
I'm
mentioned
sorry, go
about the
ahead.
biz. No, you mentioned about the business and how sales hurt for different things with censorship and everything. And a lot of the guests that we've had on have spoken in details about how um, there's so many more outlets now for people to make money, whether it be different sites and apps and paywalls and stuff of that nature. Um, as somebody who's been in the business, and done the marketing and done all the talk, and obviously we're listening to you, and you clearly know what the hell you're talking about. Why do
Thank
you?
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And why is it so why is it so difficult now, do you think, for people to make a living? Because some people are doing it very well. Some people are making
Hmm.
crazy money and getting a bag for doing what they're doing, but then other people struggle. And I always say I feel like it's so oversaturated with different people. But what is something that you felt was something that it made you stand out from other people?
So I agree. I think it is very oversaturated. I think that you had this group of people that were making porn for a while, and it wasn't very nuanced, and they had very specific ideas of what a porn star looked like. And, we learned with OnlyFans that consumers want diversity. We've learned with, I talk about analytics. Every website, you can do that. You can't tell me in this day and age that a company isn't using their data to create porn. And guess what? They aren't. So you have this weird thing happening right now where you have some companies that are just so large and so good at business that they're not struggling, right? And so people that get booked with them are doing great. But you also have these other groups of people who have zero business sense, and they're not using what their consumers are telling them. They're not using the data. They're not using any of that, and they're churning out the same old porn. And people don't want that. And it's wild to me how these people won't, change with the times. And that was a big part of when I got in the industry, why I decided not to go with an agency. And so I represent myself because I was like, you guys don't know anything about business. You know nothing about marketing. You know nothing about social media. You're ancient. You just happen to gatekeep a few people's email addresses. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm good. And so that's really, I feel like in this time of censorship and stuff, that's really going to be part of what sets people apart, because companies that are doing really, really well, everybody's going to be more lax. If a company's in the U.S. and they're making the U.S. a ton of money, they're going to get away with a little bit more, right? And so they're going to be able to continue even with all these, weird censorship issues and everything. Whereas a lot of these companies that are stuck in the past, I don't think they're going to be able to make the transition. I think people are going to really struggle at the last minute and not really know what to do. And a huge part of that is just not knowing anything about business. And they've made money in the past because they were all there was. OnlyFans, whether it's good or bad, that aside, definitely opened up a door to show us what consumers wanted. And that was huge. And the companies that took notice of that and go with that are the companies that are doing well. You have your adult time. You have your Brazzers. They're doing phenomenal because they are listening to the consumers. They have diverse, actors and actresses, and, they work with all queer people and all, trans people and non-binary and everything, and people with tattoos. And because, that's something from the old school porn, the no tattoos, which we've learned is 100% not true. People love tattoos. It's a huge fetish. It's a huge, huge selling point. So that's something that's just ridiculous. And you still have some people trying to tout this old school mindset. And it's just very interesting to watch, especially as someone who assumed that all these people would know about all of this. And I'm getting into the industry and I'm like, oh, wait, you do not know anything about business. And that's part of the reason, once again, that I love Red Bottom Productions is he is a business mogul. And so we have like this same mindset on everything all the time. I'll text him something and he's like, I just thought of that the other day, or, and that is definitely something that's going to set us apart. So obviously I have that sets me apart from everyone else. So I'm lucky in that sense. But then I also feel like I kind of have a very, very unique and individual style and brand. Something that is not niche. So I'm not categorized. I do all types of porn. I do scripted, I do hardcore fetish, queer, you name it. I want to keep that open. That's how you have longevity in your career. That's how you, have an awesome time. But at the same time, I also have my brand, and my brand is nerdy, autistic, a little crazy. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm mostly myself and my brand, like 99% myself and my brand. And it's because I've learned that people like me. I'm friendly. I'm nice. I'm, accessible. I'm like the girl next door who's also a porn star. But like the nerdy one. And that is very in demand right now. But then you combo it with I'm tiny, I do really hardcore things. It comes to a very unique combination. And then even my look, I'm just someone that is, I joke about it with my friends. I've always been stared at when I go out and do things. Doesn't matter what I wear. And so now I lean into it and I dress to have people look at me because it's just always been a thing. And so, I'm able to use all that to be very unique in the industry. And I think that's why people are starting to take notice. That, and then also just, my talent, honestly.
Can't forget that part.
Let's be real. I'm an anal queen. This past April, I worked with Rebel Rider, and I did anal fisting for the first time. And I also did double anal penetration for the first time. And that was crazy. But the thing is, I'm a professional. And so I prepped for a month before that.
I was going to say, there has to be a lot of prep to do something like that.
Yes.
That's not something you just wake up,
yes.
have a cup of coffee and say, you know what, let's get to work.
Yeah. No, I did about a month's prep altogether. And I'm also lucky in a sense. I have what's called hypermobility EDS, and basically my connective tissue is loose. And so my joints are loose, my skin's a little looser. And so I've learned that is actually what makes me so good at anal, is that I'm able to relax a lot more than the average person. So I joke that I'm a porn star because of my hypermobility EDS, because it's also the reason I won't be getting wrinkles and I'm so flexible.
Well, I mean, it's funny because we look on your X bio, and I love the little header photo on there and I got to read this for anybody, because this is something that if you're listening, take note of this, because this is like the perfect like the way to describe yourself on any kind of like dating app if you're just looking to like score, right?
Yes.
Teensy tiny troublemaker, naughty nerdy nympho, perfect pussy pansexual, cute curvaceous cum slut. I mean, if you're not swiping right on that, you know what I mean? I don't really know what your hobbies or activities consist of. No, all joking aside, though, I mean, we talk about being teensy tiny, and you are 4'10", correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. then you mentioned that you're flexible and can kind of just be,
Yes.
bent all over or anything like that.
Yep.
But have you gotten any kind of shaming for that, like any kind of body shaming? Because you mentioned about people judging people for
Yes.
control just for what you do. But then there's a
Yes.
whole nother layer to it where people body shame people in this business. And it's
Oh my God,
crazy
yeah.
because there, like you mentioned, there's so many different fetishes and looks and things that people are
Yeah.
into. So kind of take us through that. Like, have you had anybody, unfortunately, not want to work with you, or, say, oh, I'm really just, we're not really into that look. And how did you
Yeah.
combat something like that?
So it's been very interesting because I've had a couple people say things about specifically about my body, industry folks, behind closed doors. And it was interesting because they're not really, it was people that, for my career, yeah, it's a good move, but not necessarily someone like, I admired like that. I also just really don't care. I'm going to be just very honest. I know what I'm selling. I know what I look like. I know that people love it. Right now, unfortunately, because of health issues, I am having to lose a little weight. And I've actually been really sad about it because I loved the fact that I was getting into mainstream with a little tummy. I hate this idea of like, you have to be so skinny or all the way, you're a BBW, right? Like, it's ridiculous. That's not humankind. We have all kinds of bodies. And so I'm a little sad that I'm losing my tummy, because, I really wanted to fight for all of us with the little tummy. But health comes first, of course. But for the most part, I think that, just my sales and everything have kind of shown that I'm someone that people should work with. And at the end of the day, anyone with any business sense will see that. I've worked with Sean Dam a lot in Las Vegas, and he does VR. He's got F-Bomb Studio, and he's had me back a couple times because we do so well. I love doing VR. It's my favorite. I love that I'm like basically carrying on a conversation with myself throughout the whole thing. Like, I love that the actress in me, really comes out in that. And we do phenomenal. And, they're not even like super long scenes, but we have one where I have my profile with my little headphones. So I have those on, and I'm like your little e-girlfriend who wants anal, right? Like, how hot is that? This curvy, bodacious little thing with her little cat ear headphones is like, right in VR looking at you like, oh, anal, like that's gonna sell. So yeah, it's been interesting who has seen my potential and who hasn't. And I definitely am not one to like ever be like, oh, this is the person, blah blah blah, because I'm a business person. I don't do that. But I've taken note. We all are. Let's be honest. It's hard not to.
Now, to go follow up on something you were saying earlier about these companies listening to the consumers, and it's so vile that that they do listen to the consumers and the fans, because there's no bailouts for a lot of these companies. You know what I mean? Like, these are like there's just no bailouts for the porn industry.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to listen to that. And it's crazy because we talk about the different fetishes and the different things that people like and everything. So you kind of have this like normal, in a sense, way. Like, there's people that can kind of relate to you. I think one of the biggest things that these companies do is they see people, and like you said, they try to do old school. It's try to be no tattoos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Big, beautiful blonde hair. These big, everything's got to look so like, but it's like, it's a catch-22, because part of me feels like, okay, yeah, people are attracted to that because people are attracted to things that they're not used to seeing. Like,
Mhm.
why do guys like boobs? Because guys
Right.
don't have boobs. You know what I mean? Unless you have
Yeah.
man boobs, but that's different story. But for the most part,
Right.
guys don't have big giant, implants. So it's like they're attracted to something that they don't have. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I feel the opposite can be said is that people are attracted to things that they are familiar with. So when they see you doing things and they see, kind of like the nerdy, you know what I mean, the
Yep.
headset and, like video gaming, comics, anime, all of that stuff
Yep.
that falls into that category, there are more people out there who do that stuff and they see that and they
Yes.
think, oh my God, like she could be living next door to me, you know?
Yes.
And shout out to your neighbor
Exactly.
who might be listening to this podcast and is actually shaking her head going,
Actually,
they are listening. They are, my neighbor.
I actually have a really funny story about a neighbor. I lived in this apartment building, and my next door neighbor was so hot. And one day I randomly saw him on Tinder, and so I swiped, and we matched. And so for the rest of the year that I lived in that apartment building, whenever he or I was horny and we were home, we would just fuck. Like literally, like it was amazing. It was like
Convenient.
no masturbation needed. I'd just text him and be like, "Yo, are you home? What are you doing?" And it was amazing. I will never forget those moments. It was just next door sex. I mean, what can get better? And then he just goes back into his place afterwards, and I do what I want.
It's the convenience of being in the Northeast. You have a sex
Yes.
buddy and Wawa. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like they're both convenient. Um,
Yeah.
but mentioning again being from the Northeast, uh, do you find it harder to get business? Because we've been talking a lot about the old school mentality of things, and everybody thinks
Mhm.
porn, they think, oh, LA, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
or Florida, Miami. But is it becoming more normal for people to just shoot anywhere, or is it still kind of like a struggle in certain areas to get the business, or do you have to travel?
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. One, I travel a lot, obviously. You have to, especially once you get into like mainstream and studios and et cetera. Also, though, people don't realize, but you actually cannot shoot porn in every state in the country. A lot of states have laws against it already and always have. That's part of the reason porn was shot in only a couple states to begin with, because they were the only ones that were allowed to.
Which is
Um,
hilarious. Florida allows it because
I
of Florida
know.
not allowing to do so many other things. Florida
I
being,
just can't
anti
with
so much
them.
other stuff, but they're allowing you can shoot porn, but
Yeah.
you can't do everything else. Yes, you just don't
Yeah.
walk into a Publix barefoot, but by all
Yep.
means, you can go shoot a porno afterwards. So
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And that's actually part of the reason that people doing collabs and stuff started doing trades. It's kind of like a way to get around it if you're in a state where it's illegal. Um, you're not paying somebody. It's specifically that you're paying somebody to do sex on camera is the laws. And so people were getting around it by like doing trade and stuff. But yeah, so you literally can't shoot porn in a lot of states. And then also too, I find that it's better to not be right in the middle of making the porn 24/7. I kind of like the travel. You go away, you do your thing, you come back, you're home. It kind of helps separate it a little bit, because I think a lot of people in this industry can't separate, and they don't have good boundaries in place. And that leads, unfortunately, to a lot of heartache down the line in many, many different ways. And, that's how you get burnout and, so many different things. So I kind of like that I have to travel. And then I can't wait, honestly, to start working in Europe. I'm a huge fan of really hardcore pornography. I love what Europe does. I love some of the crazy, insane hardcore stuff that they do, especially in like Prague and stuff. So I'm so excited to get to that point because I genuinely love doing the hardcore stuff on camera. I think that it is so sexy and cool to have this like tiny, curvy, nerdy little thing doing insane hardcore shit. Like, to me, that is hot as fuck. And you gotta love your own porn, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not your biggest fan, who is?
Yes, yeah. And I will say, I definitely don't necessarily put out as much porn as, everyone else right now. But a huge part of that is I'm very picky. I'm really over people that don't take things seriously and are not artists and are not, creative and performers and, really not that you have to be those things professionally. You can just have those capabilities or learn to have those capabilities, but I'm honestly at a point where even companies that reach out that just have a gross look or it's not, my style, I'm going to say no right now. I'm very privileged to be in a position that I can do that. I will say, of course, we don't always have that luxury, but I feel very lucky to be able to have that choice because then I see my friends, have scenes and they're like, I don't even want to promote this. And I'm like, oh, thank God I don't have that. It's very interesting though, because I feel like a lot of people think that if you're not just churning out content constantly, like what are you doing? Whereas I feel like the thing that has to be the most constant is honestly the socials. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff that people are consuming daily. They're consuming your porn, anything from once to a couple times a week, potentially, right? But they're always consuming your safe for work content or even your Twitter or, your socials in general. That's what they're watching all the time. And that's, so important to keep up with. And then, I just don't want to be that person that looks back on my career and is like, oh my God, why did I shoot that? So I've gotten to a place where I'm pretty picky, who I work with and what studios. And that's a huge part of why I, with the contract with Red Bottom Productions. It's a non-exclusive, so I'm still able to work with other people to some extent. But it guarantees me work. It guarantees me press. It guarantees me a part in the creative process. And it guarantees me safety. Honestly, I love that I can do very hardcore fetish on a Red Bottom Production set and feel totally safe and comfortable and know that I'm in a good spot. That is just huge because, like any industry, you're going to have people that are predators, and we know the horror stories and et cetera. So being able to have like that safety on set and do that fetish work is just, phenomenal. And then, the style, my Blue Bang just came out and it's gorgeous. Oh my God. Like it came out perfectly between, his and my directing it and then the angles that the cameraman got. And then we have the best editor ever. And she just put it together like phenomenally. And it's so beautiful. And I'm like, this is the kind of porn I want to be making, And so I'm a picky girl, and I'm gonna stay picky, to be honest.
Well, I think it's great information that you posted or mentioned about the socials, because one thing that I've learned, and maybe this is, and if I'm wrong in my thought process, I'm wrong in my thought process, but this is kind of just what I think. You will be surprised how many people that you do not know on a personal level who support you and what you do than people who you've known your entire life. And this is just, again, this is my opinion on it. I feel like sometimes people that you've known your entire life, if you're fortunate enough to have people like you do in your inner circle of people who are,
Hmm.
like giving you great feedback, supporting you, not
Yes.
everybody has that. And I feel like sometimes people that you known your whole life, if they see you becoming successful or even
Hmm.
mildly successful, like a jealousy and hatred starts to brew inside of them. And it's
Yes.
weird because it might be something that you never noticed. It could be a friend that you've known your
Yep.
entire life. You could have gone to school with them, you could have grew up with them, and you're like, no, there's no way that this person is, envious of me. But as soon as you get a
Hmm.
little bit of success, they don't want to repost anything. They don't want to mention it. They don't want to,
Hmm.
acknowledge the fact that you even do what you do. So you
Yeah.
really need to kind of hunker down and cater to those people that you may never meet. There could be a guy that lives in fucking Iowa that you'll never
Yep.
meet in your life. But you know what? That guy in Iowa, he's constantly buying your content. Like he's constantly
Yep.
like liking your tweets and liking your posts. And I see a
Yes.
lot of people on X and other platforms where, I mean, I get it. Like you said, there are, people that are stalkerish and people that are,
Yeah.
creepy and everything. But before you jump to a conclusion and think, okay, this guy from Iowa is just a weirdo stalker. And it's like, maybe he's really not. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's
Yeah.
just passionate. And maybe that's something that you need as to build your brand and your character and, your
Hmm.
empire, but you need that guy from Iowa, so.
Yeah.
And then, don't get me wrong, that guy from Iowa could be a fucking psychopath. You know what I mean? Like that could be
Yeah.
your radars and all the like bells and whistles that are going off in your head might be completely accurate, but I
It's
just
funny.
find,
I have a group chat and I send my friends like fan art and stuff. And it's so funny how like sometimes they'll be like, no, creepy stalker. And other times they're like, that's awesome. I love this. That's so funny you're saying that because it sometimes it really is like that. You kind of, and it's kind of hard to like suss out, but I feel very strongly in, and this is like my only thing that I feel strongly about, and it's, hatred on my page. So I'm very, if there's any, racism, if there's any, anti-sex worker, any bullying, anti-trans, no, not on my page. Like, you can't just, if you want to go do that, that's your prerogative, but not on my page.
yeah, I have zero
So
tolerance for that.
yeah. So I do wait a little bit and I don't just follow anybody. I don't just follow anybody back. I kind of like to suss out because I think it's important to stay true to your brand and who you are as a person. And that's one of the random things I have become known for is I'm very anti-race in porn. I'm mixed. I work with tons of mixed people. I work with everybody. Like, it's just ridiculous at this point. And so that's like one of my few, things that I refuse to do is any race play whatsoever. No talking about race. Honestly, all my porn's interracial. So there you go. And I feel really strongly about that. And it's my one thing. Literally, I have like barely any hard nose, like sexually. I don't care what you say. I don't care how you market it. I'm like just nothing about race. That's it.
Now, now, where can people find you at online? Because I mean, it's one thing to say all these things and be all this and everything, but there's so much bullshit out there. Like, not even the hate. The hate is its own thing, but there's so much catfishing and like AI stuff now, and it's just like you want people to make sure that if they're supporting you, they're actually really genuinely supporting you and not somebody in Dubai who is just living it up.
I know. It's so interesting that people, so I'm autistic and I'm very, very good with like pattern recognition and spotting, things that are off or weird. And so it's very hard for me to understand the thing where people get catfished so easily. Because to me, it's so obvious. I'm like, well, look, they only have this many followers, and these are the 5 pictures they've posted, and this is how they talk on the photo versus, like, it's funny to me that it happens so much. But I think, people just have to realize that they have to know your brand and make sure that your brand is being portrayed in that social media. And then also, most of us have our own website, or at least like a link tree or an all my links where everything is together. And so you're always going to be safe going to that, So I always am like, just make sure you just go to the person's actual site. And then another thing I tell people is, Google being so censored these days and doing a lot of safe search stuff, I suggest people use DuckDuckGo as a browser and a search engine. You're more likely to find all your favorite porn stars really easily and their websites and stuff. A lot more information about us comes up because they're a lot less strict and a lot less in your data, which is cool. But yeah, it's crazy. I've been lucky. I don't think I have any catfish yet that I know of. We shall see though. We shall see. And then my personal, where you can find all me is I use allmylinks.com/Pixxie LaRue, all lowercase with the 3 X's in the Pixxie. Nice and easy to remember. And you have my safe for work stuff. You've got my socials there. You've got my, 18 plus links, pretty much everything, and everywhere I can be found. But then again, I also do studio work. So I generally tell people just hop on DuckDuckGo, put in my name, and you'll find me.
And then kind of tease anything that you got coming up, because I feel like we got to have you back on again because there's so much more that we can get into. But what is something you can kind of like whet the appetite in more ways than one for people out there that they can get? I mean, you just did the blow bang.
Yes.
And the birthday blow bang, and happy birthday for that.
Thank you.
But what is something else besides that, or even just that in itself? Because like I've seen that on your X, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is definitely interesting. What's something that you can kind of get people excited about?
So yeah, no, the blow bang is phenomenal. Just came out. It ended up being one of my best scenes to date. I do have a lot of cool ideas floating around with Red Bottom Productions right now. We have a trans studio as part of the studio, and so I want to do a bunch of trans work. One of my best friends in the industry is Kayla Luna, and she's a gorgeous trans femme, and she's worked with Red Bottom now. I connected them, and she and I really want to work together for Red Bottom. So potentially something where she and I both sub and bottom for someone, maybe more than someone, is definitely in the works. And then Red Bottom and I definitely want to continue. We started a series about our very own frat house. That's a sexy frat house. Our first scene came out a little bit ago with Chocolate God, and it was amazing. So definitely going to have the next episode in that series coming up soon as well. And then just looking forward to, award season. I love all the glitz and the glamour of that. And I think the fans do too. So that should be fun as well.
Well, like I said, we have to have you back on again because there's so much more that we just can't fit into one episode of a podcast. But the beginning has been great, and it's been awesome talking to you and getting to know a little bit more, and just hearing somebody just knows what they're doing, is just goal oriented and just smart with what they're doing. And anybody that's listening to this who's getting into business, or even if you've been into business for a while, like kind of take pieces away from this interview, kind of this conversation, because there's a lot there that you can kind of like sink your teeth into and kind of like, okay, how can I borrow that idea? How can I make, something she said and kind of make it my own? And,
honestly, that's a huge reason I talk about this stuff. It's a huge reason I do. I think everyone should have the tools for success,
I believe so, because again, there's so many things out there that are, swaying people every which way. And
Yep.
Like there's just good feedback there. I was like, I'm listening to it. I'm smiling because I'm like, wow, it's so refreshing to hear somebody who just kind of like
Oh,
has a game plan and has an idea of what the hell they want to do. Because a
yes.
lot of people, I think, just kind of go into this blind or just think it's just
Yes.
easy money where you just like, I'm just
Yep.
going to turn on a camera. We're going to
Yep.
screw, we're going to fuck, and I'm going to become, a multimillionaire. Doesn't work that way.
No.
Doesn't work that way in any field, in any
No.
world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really cool talking to you, and we
Thank
cannot
you
wait
so
to
much.
hear and see more things from you. And you're always welcome back on the show whenever you have the time. Like
Thank
we will make
you.
time for you.
Thank you so much. This has been great. I love chatting like this. It's a great way to connect with my fans too, since I'm not really so much of a convention girly. So thank you so much again for having me on. And this has been so fun. I can't wait to chat more.
Yes, definitely. We'll have you back on real soon.
Thanks so much. Hey y'all, I'm Pixxie LaRue, and I'm a teensy tiny 4'10" porn star, and I'm here with Mixmaster B on MMB Radio.